Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your channel of Math and Engineering Made Easy. In today's session, I will continue with the practice SAT math test. Um, I don't think we can finish it today in this session, so probably I'll break it into two sessions as really it's a 55-minute test. Excuse me. Let's start with the first one. There are 38 problems in 55 minutes, so roughly I'm sorry, 38. Yeah, it's only 55 minutes, so like a minute and a half, slightly less per problem. But now you have a calculator, I think, in this portion, right? Okay. Um, the first problem said that the US Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, recommends that adults engage in 2.5 hours per week of vigorous exercise. A local health society conducts a survey to see if people are meeting this goal. Are they really having 2.5 hours? So they ask 100 people with gym memberships how many minutes of exercise they engage in per week. After analyzing the data, the Health Society finds that the average respondent exercises 142, slightly less than 2 hours and a half, which would be 150. So anyways, minutes per week. But the margin of error was approximately 36 minutes. So that's a wide range. The society wants to lower this margin of error. Using which of the following samples instead would do so? 50 people with gym memberships, 50 is less number, so it would be a wider range, right? 50 people randomly selected from the entire adult population, again, 50. 100 people with gym memberships, but from a variety of gyms, or 200 people randomly selected from the entire adult population. So the answer should be 200 because the 200 is a bigger sample, meaning it decreases the margin of error. So for this one, we pick D. If we go to the second one, it says, as a general rule, business strive to maximize revenue and minimize expenses, of course, because they want to maximize their profit. An office supply company decides to try to cut expenses by utilizing the most cost-efficient shipping method. The company determines that the cheapest option is to ship boxes of ballpoint pens and mechanical pencils with a total weight of no more than 20 pounds. If each pencil weighs 0.2 ounce and each pen weighs 0.3 ounces, which inequality represents the possible number of ballpoint pens B for ballpoint and mechanical pencils M for mechanical, okay? The company could ship in a box and be as cost effective as possible. There are 16 ounces. Oh my God. In a pound. So all of them, of course, they multiply 20 pounds by 16 to get it in ounces. So that doesn't help us. Well, we know that the ballpoint pencil weighs 0.2. So, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the mechanical pencil is M and the ballpoint is P. The pencil is 0.2, so M is 0.2. So these two are fine because you are multiplying the number of mechanical pencils by 0.2 and the number of ballpoint pens by 0.3. Here they divide, so we can exclude C and D. They are the same except that one of them is less than, the other is less than or equal. If the box can have no more than 20 pounds, meaning if they are 20, yes, the box can handle that. So I would pick B because B has less than or equal. If it's less than, it means no, you cannot have exactly 320. It has to be slightly less. Well, again, in real life, the weights will not exactly be 0.2 and 0.3, but this is theoretical. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is that if you weigh several pencils and several pens, there would be slight differences. So when you combine some of them, or if you have a lot of these pens, there would be a margin of error. Again, they will not be exactly 20 pounds. They may be slightly more, slightly less. But as a matter of fact, we pick B. When we go to C, it says, where will line Q in the graph intersect the x-axis? Okay. So there are many ways of doing it, but the easiest way really is to find the slope. You see that you have 2 points here, a point 0 and 5, and then you have a point 3 and 4. So you can calculate the slope. The slope, you are going down 1 in y and up 3 in x. So the slope is negative 1/3. What does that mean? It means every time you go 1 unit down, you go 3 to the right. If you are going to go 5 units down, then you will go 5 times 3 or 15 units to the right. The answer is C. That's easy. That's the quickest way to do it, really. Of course, you can find the equation of a line and then substitute with y equals 0 and solve. It will take a long time. The function f of x is defined as f of x is twice g of x, where g of x is x plus 5. So what is the value of f of 3? Well, in order to get f of 3, you have to get g of 3. G of 3 is 3 plus 5. So g of 3 equals 3 plus 5 equals 8. F of 3 or f of x is 2 times g of x. So f of 3 is twice g of 3. It's 2 times 8. It's 16, which is D. Okay, of course, you can do it much faster. I'm just showing you step by step so you know where I got this number from. A printing company uses a color laser printer that can print 18 pages per minute when printing on thick cardstock paper. One of the company's best sellers on the internet is business cards, which are sold in boxes of 225 cards. The cards are printed 10 per page, then cut and boxed. If a real estate company has 12 full-time agents and orders 2 boxes of cards per agent, how many minutes should it take to print the cards, assuming the printer runs continuously? Okay, so a lot of information, but first we have 12 full-time agents and they order 2 boxes per agent, so they are ordering 24 boxes, right? The boxes are sold 225. So if there are 24 boxes, you multiply by 225 to find, how many boxes or how many cards. Then they tell you the cards are printed 10 per page and you get 18 pages per minute. Okay? So first of all, what are the number of pages? If these are the number of cards, I divide them by 10 to get the number of pages and then divide also by 18 because I can do 18 pages per minute and that will give me how many minutes altogether I need. So 2 times 12 is 24 boxes. The box has 225 cards. So 25 times 225 cards per box. The box and the box cancel. The numerator is cards. Here I have 10 pages, 10 per page. meaning 10 divided by page, times 18 pages per minute. The pages cancel and you get minute. So altogether, I will get the value would be 24 times 225 divided by 180. And that gives me 30 minutes if it's running continuously. Okay, so that's the first page. Next, we have 4 problems. Number 6, it says, if x is greater than 0.002 and less than 0.2, and y is greater than or equal to 5, less than or equal to 25, what is the maximum value of x over y? If you divide something, you want to maximize the value, you make the numerator as big as possible and the denominator as small as possible, right? So I'm going to say it's 0.2. That's the maximum x divided by 5, which is the minimum y, and that will give you 0.004. No, 0.04, I'm sorry. So when you multiply by 5, you get 0.2, 0.04 is a. Following a study of children in the US under 3 years old, the American Academy of Pediatrics stated that there is a positive correlation between the amount of time spent watching TV and the likelihood of developing inattention or ADD. Which of the following is an appropriate conclusion to draw from this statement? There is an association between TV and attention disorders for American children under 3 years old. Yeah, that's it. Let's see the others. There is an association between TV time and ADD for all children, meaning in all over the world. Well, we didn't check that. An increase in attention disorder is caused. No, that's not causation. That's just association. You cannot claim that it causes that. Same thing, I think, here, because 2 of them are causation. You can exclude them. One talks about just in general, kids under 3 years old. And this one is just American, and it says the study was conducted in the US. So it should be A. Number 8. A bicyclist is trying for the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, that's in Belgium, one of Europe's oldest road bicycle races. The line graph above shows the number of miles she biked each week of 8 weeks. According to the graph, what was the greatest change in absolute value, meaning greatest increase or greatest decrease in the weekly number of miles? Notice that you are looking at the slope, the highest slope, meaning this one would be higher than that, but we can calculate. This is 72, 66, 65, 64. So that's an increase of 8. This is a small decrease. Okay, 1, 2, and then 6. That's another increase of 8, increase of 8. Here, you dropped 1 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a decrease of 10. And that's an increase of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So decrease of 10. They didn't say increase or decrease. They say change in absolute value. So it should be 10. They didn't ask us between which weeks, but that's it. If a line that passes through the coordinates a minus 1 and 2a, and a and 6 has a slope of 5, what is the value of a? Well, we know the equation for slope, change in y over change in x. So 5, which is the slope, equal change in y, 6 minus 2a, or 2a minus 6, it doesn't matter, divided by a. But if I start with 6, I have to start in the denominator by a. If I had started with 2a, I would start down with a minus 1, minus a minus 1. So this is 6 minus twice A over just one. Yes, it's A minus A, which is 0, and negative times negative is positive. So you get 5 equals 6 minus twice A. If I subtract 6 from both sides, these would cancel, and I get negative 2A equals negative 1. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. If I divide by negative 2 both sides, I get A equals 1/2, which is C. Okay. As I said, there are 38. Still have time. You can do maybe another 10 or so. An occupational health organization published a study showing an increase in the number of injuries that resulted from elderly people falling in the bathtub. In response to this increase, a medical supply company decided to drop its price on bathtub lifts from $450 to $375, hoping to still break even on the lifts. The company breaking even meaning you don't make profit, but you don't lose. So revenues equals expenses. When its total revenue, income from selling in bathtub lifts, is equal to its total cost of producing the lifts. If the cost C of producing the lifts is C equals 225N plus 3150, they didn't say, oh, selling N bathtubs. So that's the number of bathtubs, of course. How many more of the lifts does the company need to sell at the new price to break even? So notice that currently 225N plus 3150 should equal 450N because that's the number of lifts they sell, and they sell them for 450. So to break even currently, before reducing the price, I subtract 225N from both sides. So we can write it 225N equals 3150. So currently they break even if they sell, 14. So N is 14 lifts. Why do I have to calculate it now? Because they said, how many more? So I need to know how many now and how many I need to sell after reducing the price. The next equation would be 225N plus 3150 equals 375N, right? Because now I'm selling the lift for only 375. So if I subtract 225N again, like I did last time, that will give me 150N equals 3150. So N equals 3150 divided by 150 equals 21 lifts. And of course, they put 21 as one of the answers, which is incorrect because they didn't ask you how many they should produce to break even. They said how many more they have to produce or to sell to break even. So the answer is 7, not 21. Be careful. Number 11 and 12 on the following information. They say a zoo is building a penguin exhibit. It will consist of an underwater area and a land area. The land area is made of thick sheets of ice. An outline of the total space covered by the ice is shown here. So this is ice, okay? And then they have a pipe of 2 feet. So the diameter here, they didn't try that, is 2 feet. Runs the full length of the exhibit under the ice. A substance known as ice-cold glycol continuously runs through the pipe to keep the ice frozen. About how many cubic feet of water are needed to create the ice portion of the exhibit? So we have to find the volume of this shape, and then we subtract the volume of the pipe, because I'm not going to fill the pipe with ice. It's filled, or with water. It's filled with glycol pipe. So we're gonna probably close the pipe and just insert water. So to find the volume, I can divide it like that, this piece and that piece, or I can divide it by that and take this piece and that piece. It doesn't matter. In both cases, you have to do two parts. So if I find the volume of this rectangular prism, I have length of 15, width of 25, height of 4. So that gives me this volume. Of course, I have to subtract the volume of the pipe at the end. And then I have this volume, which is, if this is 15 and that's 32, then that distance from here to here would be 17 feet, right? So it would have been easier to take this. I have already the dimensions, but anyways, I can say plus 17 times 11 times 4. And then this pipe, you will have a cylinder, right? The volume of a cylinder is area of the base times height. The height is 32, so minus 32. And the area of the base, notice the diameter is 2 feet. So the radius is 1 foot. And the area of a circle is pi r squared. So pi times 1 square is just pi. So at the end of the day, I say 15 times 25, which is 375, times 4 is 1500, plus 17 times 11 is 187, times 4, it doesn't matter, minus 32 pi. So I get 2147.469 cubic feet. 2147, 2150 is the closest, of course. They don't give you, to 3 decimal places. The zoo is planning to hire a company to fill the space with water. So this space. The company plans to use 2 4-inch hoses that can each pump 60 gallons of water per minute. About how long should it take to fill the space? There is 48 gallons of water per cubic foot of ice. Okay, so why do they give us 4-inch hoses? And I don't care about it, right? Yeah, they say 2 hoses each gives 60 gallons per minute. So I already found the volume, so 2147.469. I'm going to multiply that by 748 to get it in gallons, and then divide that by 2 times 60. There are 2 hoses, each pumps 60 gallons, so over 120, and that should be it. I don't need the 4-inch at all. So I'm going to take this number, multiply it by 748, and then divide by 120. I get 133.8. 133.859 minutes. A minute is an hour is 60 minutes. So if I divide 60 and 60 is 120. So 2 hours and 13.8 minutes, the closest 2 hours and 15 minutes, right? This is the only one that has 2 hours. So it should be D. All righty. Let's see the next one. Which of the following quadratic equations has no solution? Okay, let's look at them. Here I will have to subtract 3 from both sides and then divide by -2. So I will get x minus 5 squared equals 2/3. I take the square root and add 5, so that is okay. Here, that equals 0, so I divide by -2 is still 0, so I have x is 5 or x is -3, so that's fine. When I do this, oh, that's a positive. So when I move the 3 and divide by 2, I get x minus 5 square equals -3/2. That's impossible because to solve for x, I have to take the square root. The right-hand side is negative, so it will give me an imaginary number, so C doesn't work. This one is easy. I divide by 2. It's like this one. I get the same answer. Well, not the same answer because this is negative and this is positive. This will give you either x is -5 or x is -3, so that's okay. Okay, for the next two questions, they refer to this. We have 3 airplanes depart from 3 different airports at 8:30 a.m., all traveling to Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The distance the planes must travel are recorded in the following table. Note, assume all times provided are Eastern. Okay. The plane traveling from Boston traveled at an average speed of 360 miles per hour. The plane traveling from Kansas City arrived. They didn't tell you what speed, but they said arrived at 10:34. How many minutes before the plane from Boston arrived did the plane from Kansas City arrive? This one arrived at 10:34, they told you. This one departed at 8:30 from Boston, which is 864 miles away from Chicago. So when I divide that by the speed, it should give me the time. And it gave me 2.4. 0.4 times 6.4 hour is 24 minutes. So 2 hours and 24 minutes. 8:30 and 2:24 is 10:54. This one arrived at 10:34, so the difference is 20 minutes. A. Okay, number 15 still works on that. For the first quarter of the trip, the plane from Miami now is 1,200 miles. So for the first quarter, 1,200 times a quarter is 300. So for the first 300 miles, the plane from Miami flew through heavy winds and dense cloud cover at an average speed of 200. 300 divided by 200 is 1.5, so 1.5 hours. For the remaining, which is 900 miles, portion of the trip, the weather was ideal and the plane flew at an average speed of 450. So divided by 450, 9 over 4.5 is 2, so that's plus 2 hours. Due to a backlog of planes at O'Hare, it was forced to circle overhead in a holding pattern for 25 minutes. So these are in hours, so I can say plus 25 over 60. Or I can say, well, we can write it in hours and minutes. And at what time did the plane from Miami land in Chicago? It started at 8:30. We added an hour and a half, meaning an hour and 30 minutes, so we get 10. This is 10 hours. Plus 2 is 12. And 25 minutes, so 12:25. I don't need to divide by 60, it's 12:25. It arrived at 12:25. Number 16. If h of t is the square root of t squared plus 9, for all real values of t, which of the following is not in the range of h of t? Now, when you have a square root, you know that the output of the square root has to be positive, cannot be negative. Because even if, in this case, even if t is negative, t squared would be positive. So the minimum value, so you can say the range here is x such that x is greater than or equal to 3, because if t is 0, that's the smallest, and square root of 9 is 3. So it has to be 3 or more. 1 cannot be the answer. You can never have a 1 out of this function unless you use imaginary numbers or negative numbers and imaginary output. Not even, we cannot consider that. Number 17. If A and B represent the solution of the system of equations shown in the graph, this is the solution. A is negative, B is positive. So what do they want? A equals negative 3B. Then which of the following could be the value of A plus B? A plus B equals negative 3B plus B equals negative 2B. Notice B is the y coordinate and it's above the x-axis, meaning it's positive. When I multiply it by negative 2, the answer has to be negative. The only negative value here is A, negative 9. So that should be the answer. You can't have a positive value when you multiply negative 2 by a positive coordinate. Let's keep going. So at least we get 18. So, or you finish this page because there are 38. So roughly we finish half today and half next time. Oh my God, this whole thing is... The car manufacturer tested 2 types of thermostats to determine which one it wanted to use in a new model of car. The more consistently the thermostat engages the engine's cooling fan, the better the cooling system performs over the long run, of course. The double dot plot above, thermostat A and B, shows the test results given the following conditions. 0 indicates that the cooling fan engaged at exactly the temperature at which the thermostat was set. So that's the best thing, is to have, if I can have all of them at 0, that'd be ideal, but in real life, you never get that. There will always be variability. Keep that in mind when you do probability and statistics later. Negative numbers indicate that the fan engaged below the target temperature. Positive means above the target temperature. The safe range is 10 degrees above or 10 degrees below. Which of the following best states which thermostat the car manufacturer is likely to choose? Is it A, because thermostat A has the median at 0 and the range is greater than thermostat B? That doesn't make any sense. If the range is bigger, it means the manufacturer quality is low. You don't know what you're getting. You may get, so that's definitely not correct. Thermostat, because the median of the data is 0 and the range is less than that of A, and definitely that should be the correct answer. Let's look. Thermostat A, because the mode is 0, which indicates a more consistent thermostat. No, it depends on the variability, of course. Thermostat B, because the data is bimodal, which indicates a more, no, doesn't mean a more consistent at all. So it has to be B. Less variability. Okay, if P and Q represent the zeros of a quadratic function and P plus Q is negative 3, which of the following could be the factored form of the function? Well, we know that when you factor something, so when I factor, say, the first one, the roots would be 3 and negative 3. Okay, so when I add them, I get 0. For this one, it's 4 and -1. When I add them, I get +3. So it's really opposite to the sum. So here the sum is -3, and probably many students would pick this as the answer without thinking, because they say, oh, -4 plus 1 is -3, and this is negative. No, they didn't ask you for, they say the roots, so you have to solve. So really you work backwards. If the sum is 3, when you solve, you get the sum is 3, but if you take this sum, you get -3. You don't need the sum of these, you need the sum of those. -1 gives me a value of 1. 4 gives me -4, right? When I solve for x, so that must be the solution. -6 and 3 would give me 6 and -3, and the sum would be 3. P plus Q would be +3, not -3. So the answer is C. And finally, the figure above shows the graph of P of x minus 4. What does that mean? It's not P of x. It's 4 less than P of x. So P of -6 will not be 0. It would be 4, because this is reduced by 4. So in other words, if I call that f of x, then f of x equals P of x minus 4. So if I want to solve for P of x, I add 4 to both sides. It's going to be f of x plus 4. Have to be careful with that. They didn't ask you what value. So again, f of 5 is 0. But P of 5 would be 0 plus 4 or 4. Okay, so here they say, what is P of 0? When x is 0, f of, excuse me, f of x is 7. So P of x is 7 plus 4 or 11, which is D. Of course, they put 7 for you because you see, oh, 0, 7, you pick the C. No, be careful. They say, if that was the graph of P of x, you would be right. But they said, this is the graph of P of x minus 4. So to be safe, call it something else. I called it f of x. You can say g of x, whatever. Y. And then you say, okay, y equals that. So P of x would be y plus 4. So whatever value of y you get, you add 4 to it. And that's pretty much half the test. Next session will continue. If you find something that doesn't make sense or you disagree with, please don't hesitate to comment that and send me your comment, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for your time. Best of luck in your test. Have a great day. Bye.